Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Friday, November 21st at 11:30 a.m. Now, we'll get to see who joins. We'll get to see how many folks are interested in a constructive story, a story that has purpose, a story that has logic and rationale as compared to hyperbole, exaggeration, or hype or fear. There's no fear or hype involved in successful capital management. There's only rationale. So, do you see my demeanor? Do you see my presentation? Do you see my tone and how you may perceive that I feel? I'm living my day. I'm working. I'm taking care of my family. I'm doing everything as I normally would. And that's because of the story that I've told you guys and gals over the last years, in that it takes mental reprogramming in order to properly, or rather sustainably manage capital. There's nothing you could do about price going up or price going down. There's nothing you can do. If you're a trader, sure. And there's few successful traders, and you'll see very high profile traders. Oh, he was up $100 million 3 days ago and he just got liquidated and he blew it all out. And there's a couple of these folks, very high profile folks, that circulate on social media telling these types of stories. And those are obviously few and far between. Very rare to hear those very large numbers. The vast majority of folks, you never hear stories about folks that have traded meme coins and have lost 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand. Now, that is not that is clearly not how I engage with markets. That is not the story that I've told you over the years. That is the antithesis of the story that I've told you over the years. And I am a living, breathing person that executes the strategy and the mental psychology that I've discussed over the last years to a T. I don't have a negative sentiment about these markets. I don't feel bad or good about this chart that we're looking at right now. Why I look at this chart is to just understand where we are in the markets. And this is just the Bitcoin chart. This is a small piece of the information that's important in order to have clarity and comfort and calm and all the things that are important that I discuss. More important information is the macroeconomic information, because crypto is only a small part of the macroeconomic equation. Now, what's best to talk about on a day like this? It's probably just commentary. It's probably just Q&A. Nobody's going to hear the macro commentary, um, which we could briefly look at. Move bump down, back down to 77. That's constructive. So from a forward-looking perspective, move was in the 80s, as you saw. It bumped above this green line that I draw at 82, and it has been pushed down. So that could be a forward-looking indicator. And finally, this is a bottoming process. And then if you look at back at the Bitcoin chart, maybe that coincides with the weekly 100. But this type of information doesn't help you guys. That's, oh, it's bottoming. Oh, we found the bottom. And then cue all the folks out there. Oh, I I gotta buy the bottom. I gotta buy the Pico bottom. I gotta buy 10 grand worth of something, and I don't want to see it go down to $9,500, or else I'm panicking. I'm losing money. My net worth is going down. They only want to see number go up. They only want to see total net worth, because that's how they measure success. And that is not a constructive conversation. That is not something that will help you guys. And that is not why I'm looking at this Bitcoin chart. I look at this Bitcoin chart maybe because these are the headlines, these are the talking points, this is what's going around on social media. Everyone's panicking, everyone is thinking about their net worth. Stop thinking about your damn net worth. Think about the four rules. And if you bought something, you bought it. We have to live with what we buy, and hopefully you bought at good prices. And if you bought at expensive prices, you bought at expensive prices. Go, if you have $1,000 and you go into Best Buy and you buy five things worth $750. Are you constantly looking at the fucking prices of those things you bought that you could resell them maybe in the future? What's the resale value of a phone or a dishwasher? And clearly they're going to depreciate. The technology is a depreciating asset, and those technologies will depreciate. You don't expect them to appreciate. So if you look at these assets that we've bought as things that you could purchase, what's the comparison or what's the takeaway there? You purchase these things, but these things will go down in price and they will go up in price in the future. Why? Because of the macro conversation and the way the global plumbing works, the way money is used to to print currency. So we have that forward looking knowledge that the system must expand in the future. When? I don't give a shit. All I care about is one thing: redefining the rules that allow me to be as calm and collected as I am. How do I measure my net worth? Net worth is your capacity to spend. So if you look at your checking account, how much money do you have? Your savings account is stupid. There's absolutely no reason to have a savings account. Albeit maybe the cash position is a savings account of sorts. But the differentiation between a savings and checking is a silly, silly talking point. What's pertinent is okay, fine. You got 10 grand in your checking account. You could spend $10,000. If you have $5,000 in stable coins, you could spend $5,000. Your total net worth is the total amount of currency you have access to, your capacity to spend money, or at least that's the total net worth. It actually means anything that's important. So, what are all of these things that we have bought? All of these things that we have bought give us a capacity to potentially increase our net worth. And the inspection there is X, Y, and Z. How much does it cost? How much is it paying? And how likely is it to continue to pay into the future? Now, all the things that we buy are going to be good things, just like you buy some shit at Best Buy and it's guaranteed to go down in price, no resale value, no cash flow. These things that we buy have a very high likelihood of being more valuable in the future and produce cash flow because those are the types of assets that we've chosen. Now, what is the most important characteristic? What is the likelihood that they continue to pay into the future? One, there's no guarantee that they continue to pay into the future. And this is where portfolio construction comes into the picture. What have you bought? If you bought 10 things, followed X, Y, and Z, respected the four rules, they're all productive. One, not all of them are going to be successful. Two, not all of them are going to actually exist in the future. You're going to have failed purchases. And three, you're going to really need to expect the cash flow to go down and to go up. Now, we are looking so far into the future, probably 5 years is a reasonable target. I remember my wife when we were first started talking. She asked me, "What's my 5 year plan?" I remember graduating from college, and that in the career office they asked, "What's your 5 year plan?" A 5 year plan is a good plan to have, and what's your expectations? That's that key word right there, expectations. What are your expectations? Well, my expectation is I bought many things over the last years. Some of them I no longer own. Look at the balancer issue. I can't do anything about that balance of capital. At one point, that thing was worth like 30 or 50 grand, and now it's worth like 15. It's not worth anything. I can't sell it. I can't spend it. And all I could do is get whatever capital is produced from it. It's relatively unsuccessful in the grand scheme of things of what I'm looking for. So I had decent expectations for Balancer. I liked what they were building, but it has shown to not be a strong horse from as compared to other things that we have had interest in. We exited Contango because Balancer had an issue. Contango unlocked their locks. That's not a good sign. The fact that they could choose to unlock them, there's mutability in that. That's certainly a red flag, and I chose to exit that. And I think that was a $40,000 loss from a value perspective, but I reclaimed some capital. That's a loss. So what's the point? Let's try and hone in on some key takeaways here. And I think there was a good opening comment that could help focus some of my talking points. Teddy said, my portfolio is down 10x. Well, it's not down 10x, it's down what, 90%? It was 100 grand, it's worth 10 grand. That is an inspection from a total. Are these locked assets? Could you have sold these assets? If they're locked assets, then you're not down. You made a purchase. The Best Buy story. If you purchase these things y- and they're locked assets, you can't sell them. So they don't contribute to what I described when I started this conversation as total net worth, what you could actually spend, how much cash you actually have. So that is a misleading attribute of your portfolio, so to speak. So that's the first part of the statement. And the cash flow is evaporating. Yes, the cash flow is going to go down significantly as this market is hemorrhaging from all sentiment perspective. We could probably look at the stablecoins data on DeFi Llama and see that stablecoin supply is probably still up and to the right. Um, and that plays into the more macro inspection of this space, that this is a great space to be in leading into the next 5 years. A forward looking, this is a great place to be. You just need to buy at the cheapest price possible. Avoid the misinspections that will drive you nuts, like a total net worth of locked assets. This is probably first and foremost why I've tried to hammer home these are purchases, not positions. If you have $10,000 in a checking account and you decide to buy something, crypto, you buy VECRV, you no longer have $10,000. You might as well ha- craft a portfolio inspection tool that is able to value that at zero. It's worth zero. It's worthless. The only value that you have from that purchase is Wednesdays and Thursdays and the cash that you get from that purchase. Okay? So what now? Where the Z component, what are the odds that it continues to produce cash flow in the future? And I would say that is the highest odds possible because of the characteristics of the contracts that were deployed, immutable and deterministic. If they're paying now and the contracts are immutable, they will pay into the future if it survives. Is Curve going to survive? There's no guarantee that it survives, but that's the whole point. That's We make purchases speculating on what will survive. And what will survive is going to be the strongest in a more favorable market, an expanding and appreciating market. And what survives is going to be that base layer infrastructure that hits all the narrative talking points of alternative financial rails and all the things that the politicians are talking about nowadays. Because all of that is still there, that stablecoins give away for Treasury to offload, and it's basically a seamless way for Treasury to create dollar supply. As the world potentially heads into consuming more stablecoins and using these crypto rails and these forex markets more, that's still a great story. None of that changes. The only thing that throws people off in this market is that goddamn debank or whatever tool you use to manage to pull to refresh, and you see your total net worth evaporating because it's the wrong total net worth. It's not a total net worth that has any meaning at all as I define it. I own more assets now, but they're all 90% down. Okay. Did you buy them in 2017? Did you buy them in 2019? Did you buy them in 22? Because if you bought Bitcoin at 22 at $16,000, they're not down. And that would be only a small part of what we've talked about buying. If you bought Curve at 16 cents, 20 cents, then it's not down. And if you bought other things at lowest prices possible, probably Q4, November of 2024, or some things at this point, right about now, those things are not necessarily down. It's very easy to focus on the negatives. It's very easy to erroneously invalidate what we've done and what we're doing. It's not that I'm an eternal optimist. I am an eternal, I see the glass half full. I see the good in things. I see value in being reasonable. I see value in being humble. So what do I see? Maybe we'll get back to that after I'll go so I'll end the stream on that. If I don't end the stream on that, someone remind me. What do I see? But let me do some commentary and try and help you guys out. See if you guys are can calm down by the end of the stream. Arrow, good morning, my friend. Fugu, Gibbs story. uh, Odark, good morning. Gazika, hey Cap. I was told double digit curve. Yeah, in the future, not now. Macroeconomic conditions are not in that position. The Fed still has a relatively high interest rate, and the global currency supply is not expanding. There's complete unknowns with what's going to play out in Japan, as their currency is doing all sorts of end stage things. They got a massive fiscal bill coming. They're going to do a lot of stimulus. China's going to do a lot of This is probably like Raoul Pal talking points. As everything turns down, this is where all the countries start to stimulate simultaneously. To do what? Why? And then we go back to the macro conversation. They have to stimulate because they need to get nominal tax receipts up in order to be able to pay the interest on debt obligations. It's a very simple equation. So that means it's inevitable. It's destined that the currency supply needs to expand. As the currency supply needs to expand, things get purchased. And then you get the political collusion that attempts to guide or focus that increased currency supply to particular markets. And how do the politicians do that? They do that with tax breaks and incentives and grants and all that stuff, or fiscal spending. They have their ways, they have their levers, and they have their political goals and their agenda that they need to meet so they get reelected. So we'll come back to that where as we as I get through the comments and I talk about what my expectations are or where I see things heading. Hello, present, here for it. Where are all the traders? They should be here, or maybe they're at their day jobs. Heck, I'm at my day job right now. Traders, 99%, and that is just a number I pull out of my ass. And the point is, the vast majority of traders completely fail. You need to be a Peter Brandt to be a successful trader. You need to be someone who has no emotions and it's all structural, and all you have to do is win 51% of the time. Trading is the most silly activity, in my opinion, and that is why I don't talk about it. That's why I don't execute it. That's why I tell the story that I do, and that's why I engage with the markets the way I do. I needed a different way. I needed something that my mind could wrap itself around that's different, because I know a very simple equation. The majority fail, and I needed to do what the majority do not. I needed to be different, and I can be different. And clearly, based on the story I've told you guys, I am different. And that's the proof is in my demeanor right now. There's nothing I could do. Serenity. If I can't do anything right now, there's nothing to think or feel. There's just inspection. And inspection, in my mind, is enjoyable. I like looking at this data. I like understanding the world in which I live. I like understanding where things are, where things are likely heading. And I understand there's probabilities associated with that. Like probability here. What's the probability here that this 100 SMA holds on the weekly? I don't fucking know. I don't really care. But this tells me where we are. And because I know where I am, okay, that should be comforting. If you're lost in the frickin' jungle and you have a compass or a GPS, you know where you are. You're probably not filled with anxiety or fear. If you're lost in the jungle and you got nothing, you got no compass, you're probably fearful. You're like, oh, what am I going to do? Well, when I look at this data, this is my compass. This tells me where I am. This tells me where everyone is. This is comforting to me. I hope that helps. Present. Much love. Thank you, my friend. We've done things differently, and few will do things differently, and even fewer, will find what they're looking for. And in the end, what I hopefully can offer to as many people as possible is not as much money as possible. This isn't a game of as much money or total net worth as possible. This is a game of how you live your life. This is a game of executing life in a way that makes sense, in a way that's sustainable, in a way that the majority cannot, because most people are filled with fear. And I don't have that. I've had it historically, maybe, especially when I was younger. I would not be telling the same story on this stream back in 21 and everything was crashing in 22. It was a different story. And you could probably look back at some of my older streams and see a very different captain. But that's who I am now is a manifestation of all this growth and all this maturity of the things that I've learned and all the time that I've spent and all the mental reprogramming that I've done. This is why, like the last 3 years, I've hit home at one thing more important than everything. And I wasn't buying assets. The last 3 years, I really tried to get as many folks as possible interested in perfecting their accounting because if you're able to survive in these markets, and these markets really do change global financials, like the freaking Treasury Secretary of the United States says, or the president says, or we have hints that it's likely actually going to happen because why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't these systems be used? Then you need to be prepared. And that was probably the most important thing to do. And I know you, Seikatsu, and a couple of other folks that have spent their time preparing. And that was probably the best thing to do. And as we did that as our primary focus, sure, we had an inclination to make purchases. But our most recent rule, rule number 4, don't neglect the cash position, that was probably a very important rule to have adhered to over the last couple years. And I know it's a new rule, but now it's most important, more important than ever, maybe, because if we don't respect rule number 4, then you're a forced seller. But if you got 20 grand in cash flow saved up this year or more, do you need to sell Bitcoin? Do you need to exit a position because you need cash? I mean, the only reason folks are thinking about exiting a position or selling something is because they need cash, right? It's not because they're obsessed with their net worth. I find your humbleness, folks, and I'll come back. What am I looking for, and why I feel the way I feel? Price is lower now than in Q4 24 for our alts. Not all of them. I guess the curve was ripping post November of 24. Yeah, post November. Well, it blew out and it ran into the weekly 200. Anyway, so Okay, so then folks, there's cheaper prices. If you buy a car, if you buy a freaking Kia for 50 grand and then a year later they're selling it for 35, okay, you overpaid for that shit. And notice how I come back to a product, a consumable, a car. Okay, I overpaid for a car back in 2022, and it is what it is. What am I going to do? Uh, and then that's a whole other conversation about how to manage debt and whatnot. But there's nothing to do. I pay my monthly finances, and that's it. I proceed. I made my purchase. I don't, and I don't have a bad feeling about it because I have my damn car and I could pay my bills. So you don't always get the buy at the bottom, folks. You don't always get the buy at the cheapest price possible. You don't always get the best deal. Being sustainable and managing capital and growing a portfolio into the future isn't about buying at the bottom. Isn't about getting the cheapest price possible. It's about rule number one, owning more assets over time and hopefully getting the cheapest price you possibly can. And it's not the you're not going to get the cheapest price you possibly can. Nothing works out perfectly, but hopefully in 2030 you'll have a portfolio of assets that survived and you chose assets where 6 out of 10 are still existing and are systemic financial infrastructure and meaningful infrastructure that is being consumed around the world. We don't have to talk about all the exciting topics about crypto that folks talk about when things are good, like, oh, how it's going to change everything. But all those stories are still there. Nothing changed with those exciting stories like, oh my God, we're going to be able to send dollars instantly and fix remittance and get rid of the banks. And Aave is a bank. And, you know, that, yes, honey. Um, so all those stories still exist. And we won't always be able to buy at the cheapest price possible. Payday still comes. You're going to get paid on Wednesday. It'll be less, it'll be more. That's your cash. Guess what? I get paid on Friday. Well, I get paid 2 times a month. That's the way my company does billing. I get extra money on Wednesdays and Thursdays. That's money that I wouldn't have gotten. That's money that didn't exist if I didn't make these purchases over the last years. And that, I'll do more commentary and then I'll come back to why I feel the way I feel. And I'll conclude on that. Nice discounts with this downturn. Sure, if you got spare cash, you can buy cheap assets. That's the rules. That's our rules. Rule number one, own more assets. Rule number two, know when to not buy assets. And that's not there's no sub rules and there's no like rigorous rule number two. These are very vague and very general for a reason. Because they're not going to be precise, they're not going to be perfect. These are conceptual and broad and vague. And everyone will have their own interpretation of the rules. When is it not a good time? Obviously, if it's expensive, what is expensive? Expensive. These are relative terminologies, cheap and expensive. And maybe if look, you saved up 20 grand in cash flow, and you're like, oh, I got some bills next year. I probably shouldn't buy an asset. I probably shouldn't empty my cash. Never spend your whole checking account. So a lot of capital management in this crypto space is really stuff that's a manifestation of proper budgeting and proper bank account management that we all should have been taught in school and in college. And with regard to not, you don't spend all your money, you spend less than you make. Save your money, like Grandpa always said. No credit card debt. That's another conversation. Y'all should have no goddamn credit card debt. I don't. That's digression, but that's such a critical thing. And when I say things like that, I think about my kids. Freaking spend money you don't have. You don't spend money you don't have. Anywho, do you think Q2 ending in 12-1 is significant permanent global liquidity? All I know, the way I look at things, you can look at media headlines, you can look at a lot, you can look at refinancing requirements, and you can look granularly, like when do the treasuries expire between now and the end of the year. He gets so granular with all that data and see, does the treasury have enough money? How much do they need to raise? How much bill issuance do they need to do? And Yellen skewing towards short duration compared to long duration. Oh, are they going to issue more short term or more long term? And the short term bills and notes contribute more to systemic liquidity than the treasuries do. You're going to drive yourself mad. You're going to drive yourself crazy. Stop. Everything that I talk about is about keeping things simple. I am what's called a reductionist. I have reduced all the information that I need to look at to a couple of simple charts to give me great comfort in understanding where we are. And we didn't even look at them yet. We looked at Bitcoin, which is downstream. It's the knock-on effects. Bitcoin is the resultant after the equal sign of all the macroeconomic observations we could have. And that's dollar went back above 100. My gen well, I'll come back to expectations after a couple more comments. Dollar's back above 100. Move back below 80. That's nice. Is that an indication that uh, they're managing the insurance on overnight interest rates and pushing down the future value of money? Is that if you're reducing systemic volatility in global collateral markets, they're trying to influence the future price of money. We know that the Treasury and the entire administration wants a cheaper dollar for policy agenda reasons. Dollar up is not consistent with policy agenda. Move high, you're not going to have global currency supply expansion, and the global currency supply needs to expand to service nominal debt servicing requirements. So, in order for this system to work, in order for the system to continue and to not have a deflationary cascade, a deflationary crisis, dollar needs to come down to meet policy points. Move needs to roll over in order for global currency supply to expand. And 10-year needs to come down on interest rates because collateral price, value of collateral needs to go up. So it could be used to print currency. And when I say collateral, it's basically treasuries. It's the vast majority of collateral on this planet. And that's what the world uses as money. And this isn't the whole talking point for Bitcoin maximalists and whatnot, where better money and stuff like that, Gresham's law, good money drives out bad, stuff like that. This is about gold. I like gold. This is about gold, money. Great, it's money. But the reason gold, oh, I don't want to digress. But the world uses treasuries as money, and the treasuries and money is collateral because it's used to print the currency, and that's the way the system works. So the currency supply needs to expand. It needs to. It has to. Otherwise, you get deflationary collapse. And then Immortan Joe from Mad Max is your next president, and then you have post-apocalyptic scenario playing out. The currency fails, and the whole system fails. You don't live your life based on a fear of the system failing. Some people do, and they're called preppers, and they have bunkers with ammo and MREs. But we're not here to discuss ammo and MREs. We're here to discuss assets and how to manage these types of instruments. And the prerequisite for that is that the system continues to exist. So that's what the focus on. So frankly, move rolling over today, almost 10%, and 10-year yields coming down back to 407. That's constructive. That's actually constructive. Forward-looking indicator. This is potentially a bottom at the 100 SMA and the weekly. Would I bet on that? Would I trade on that? Fuck no. I don't do shit like that. I'm not doing anything today. I look at the data just to be like, oh, I understand where we are. So I'm not lost in the jungle. I have my compass. Okay. Hope that helps. Eric, emotions and fear are running rampant on Twitter, Cap. Find your compass and execute the rules as best as possible. That's all you can do. All you can do is, as best as you can do, have reasonable, humble expectations and have a story. Be able to tell the story to say you understand why things are the way they are, such that you're not surprised. Am I surprised? I'm not surprised. Everyone's like, oh, this is the largest sell-off. MACD and RSI are the most oversold ever, and Bitcoin's still at $84,000. Right? No, that's not the story. You know what the story is? You woke up and what did you do? You ate breakfast. Maybe you did some gym. I know I took a day off today. Kids went to school. Oh, it's Thanksgiving week. Enjoy the holiday. That's the story. Life is the story. These are just other things that aid in that story or things that we need to do along the way in order to have a reasonable life, better life in the future. I learned so much from you. Thanks for for taking your time to share your thoughts. You're very welcome. It's a pleasure. I I wouldn't be where I am mentally with how I understand things and how I engage with the markets if it wasn't for telling the story so many times. This bear in mind this story today is obviously attempting to discuss what's going on in markets right now. But in reality, it's really the same story over and over again. You realize that, right? I tell the same story every stream, and nothing has changed with that story. Actually, things have changed with that story. Over the years, we developed four rules. We've discussed X, Y, and Z. We've discussed the five businesses of crypto. We've learned and discussed and broken down the macroeconomic values that are most important, that tell us where we that are our compass. And the compass gives us our comfort. So, story has changed over the years. It's gotten better and clearer and simpler. That's the most important thing. The story has gotten simpler. With time, I learned that even with the most successful protocols, most teams drop the ball as they become rich and lose motivation. Unfortunately, immutable protocols are few and far between. Sure, um, there's, in my opinion, there's 6, 12 investment grade crypto businesses. That's about it. Everything else is speculative, highly speculative. And the only thing that's going to give you that little bit of an edge is the immutable. It's the deterministic protocols, because that's what changes everything. That's what doesn't exist in traditional finance. And I've discussed that reality. That if those survive and crypto grows to 2, 3, 4, 5 trillion dollars, 10 trillion, or whatever the hell could potentially become in the future with regard to currency supply, stablecoin supply, then it's those immutable protocols that are the centerpiece, are the base layer rails that started all this. And the market is a goldfish. They don't remember shit. And those are the businesses that will be like 2002, 2004, Amazon and Microsoft and Apple, the stuff that shapes the next 20 years. Folks are thinking about the next year, and I talk about time horizons of the next. Folks are thinking about the next 5 minutes, looking at the 5 minute charts, and I'm talking out here talking about the next 5 years. But in reality, think about .com to 2020. Are you going to be dead in 20 years? I mean, you might not be alive, but I don't want to get grim or that's not the point of the statement. The point is glass half full. and prepare for the future. And that's what the four rules do. And that's what identifying the five businesses do. I prepare for the future. And this is a sustainable way to prepare for the future. This engaging with markets, as I told in my stories. I deleted price apps from my phone a few weeks back and it's been great. Now, okay, so here's the kicker. The real test, the real psychological test that you've elevated, you've ascended, is where you don't have to delete the price apps and you don't have the emotions because you're able to compartmentalize and able to and put things into context and what is price and what is total net worth and what is meaningful. That's the test. But everyone I do encourage to do what you have to do in order to get to where you need to be. There is absolutely no reason to engage with these types of financial activities if you're not calm, cool, and collected. Do you only check charts when you're at your computer? No, I have it on my phone. It's not like I'm looking at DBank or Arabi or whatnot. I'm not looking at, not pulling to refresh the portfolio. I look at stuff like this. I look at the data. So I have TradingView on the phone. I don't pull it up like a lot, but I'm more so on X. I have what I like to do is I have an idea and I use X as my place to vent my talking points, or and I record it for posterity and history, and then obviously it's what I like to do because the ideas hopefully help people have a different perspective on things. So I like my X, and then I see all the stuff on X on the timeline, and then I look at the data, and I'm like, oh, some shit's going down. People are probably freaking out. I probably should do a stream. My man. I like your rules. I structure my portfolio in four buckets: cash, collateral, income, growth speculative. Biggest is bucket three, income, reasonable. This is all reasonable. Cash is number one because that's what we spend. So you want some money to go to the supermarket, you throw some USDC on a debit card. Use Sprint Finance. Use my referral code, which I don't shill. I don't really shill anything, but I do like Spritz, and they recently gave out their physical cards. And number 90, I got number 90 on the Spritz Finance physical card. So that's cool. So I like that. Um, Income, that's how you get more cash. You can't buy assets and you can't go to a supermarket without cash. And growth speculative. All right. So a lot of folks have exited growth speculative recently. What's my growth speculative? My growth speculative, the remaining growth speculative, I would probably say is Kingdom, and I've retained some Kingdom exposure. It's all growth speculative. There's nothing entrenched about it, especially the networks that they're on, including Hyperliquid and the new RAM drop. That's all growth. It's all so speculative. You know what's not speculative? Coinbase and Aerodrome. That story. That's no longer speculative. You might not get the best price possible, but that's not speculative anymore. There's so much traction, so many roots in that, because Coinbase goes back to the beginning of crypto, and they're into politics at this point. They're past, the critical threshold, past the point of no return, and that's what I see with, especially with the Aerodrome announcement and the integration with mainnet and the Ethereum Foundation, and tightly coupled to Coinbase. Everyone that that's just obvious at this point. But it doesn't mean that's the only thing you own. You diversify. And that's not my largest exposure. Curve is, because it's a bigger business. That's the liability printer. That's the biggest business on the planet. And it's trailing 38 cents. All right, great. It's got to be what it's going to be. It's not something I sit here and think about all day. I don't think about it at all, actually. The spot price of stuff. It'll drive folks nuts. Don't drive yourselves nutty, guys. Bob Rubby posted. Thank you, dude. Appreciate you. Where to leverage? Don't leverage anything. One, don't leverage anything. Don't use leverage. Two, I don't like derivatives. So I don't have any opinion on CVXCRV. I don't like derivatives. I know a lot of people are going to buy them. I know what it does for the protocol. It sucks up excess circulating supply. Great. Anyone who locks Curve into CVXCRV is permalocking Curve, and that's cool. Um, I just have no interest in that asset. I don't expect it to ever be the price of Curve. It's not a pegged asset. It's a derivative. It's an asset unto itself that will have its fair market value and spot price, and it's just not something I have interest in, my friend. Dean, much a pleasure. One of the few folks that have really adopted a different way of thinking of things. Buy the ticket, take the ride. That goddamn almost at the end of the comments where I get to talk about my stuff. Buy the ticket, take the ride. That's a goddamn good statement. Goddamn good statement, dude. I want a ticket. I want front row seats. I want to see what happens, and I will see what happens. That's what gets me excited. I'm here right now to see what happens. I ain't gonna miss this. Uh-uh. I know it's bad when my dad messages me, "Is it time to buy Bitcoin?" Yeah, okay. You're gonna see, well, many folks will see a lot of that. Dude, I was listening to a radio station at the gym. It was on just, the gym's speaker, and it was like, Bitcoin is a type of what? And the person couldn't answer, and it was like, 10 questions type of thing, and I'm like, you'd be surprised. The majority are so out of the loop. They're clueless, blind, living under rocks. The majority don't know. They don't. It's just strange what kind of the little bubble that we live in, how much information we know. It makes it hard to tell this story sometimes, especially to folks that are just getting started. Because imagine trying to tell where we are and what we've learned. Someone who hasn't done anything, hasn't even bought an asset, or I don't know. Hard story to tell. Is it not odd that every 4 years cycle there's been some period of exuberance? I know it was great limited only memes this time around. Well, cycle. So you have to dismantle that word cycle. What we have is a market, and the market is marketing, and the business cycle hasn't expanded yet. And that's like a Julian and Raoul story. So I don't think there's I don't think there's been a bull market in the part of these crypto markets that matter, which are the businesses. And meme coins are stupid, which attracts stupid behavior and gambling. And that's not a cycle. That's not a market. That's a fervor. That's a frenzy. It's a degenerate debauchery. So that's not part of the cycle, and it's not every 4 years. I subscribe to that. Oh, it's not a 4 year cycle anymore. But I don't really think in terms of 4 year cycles. But I understand that story, and I think what Raul and Julian talk about is where it's an extended cycle because of basically the recomposition of the money supply and how Yellen skewed towards bills and notes. It's not a 4 year cycle anymore. They got to refinance every 5 years or 5.5 years, the largest amount of the debt composition, which is the money supply. So you can't box things in. As much as I like to reduce things, I'm a reductionist. You also can't bucket everything into this idea of a 4 year cycle, the 4 year Bitcoin halving. And this is a market, and the market is marketing. Hope that helps. 12, I thought you were going to say 3 to 4 businesses. 3 to 4 that are established and central to the most important part of the story. But I'd say 6 to 12 that are all right, potential, interesting, that haven't really been tested, haven't really proven themselves. That but there's got to be more than three or four. So what are the outliers? What are the things that could be like, oh, that was obvious, like Pendle, stuff like that. You bought Pendle dirt cheap. That was 100x on the money. So you can't just own the businesses, the established, the Aerodrome Coinbase story. You got to own other things. Just like Rocco said, four, grow speculative. There's always a growth speculative component of the portfolio, and those are the ones that are more likely to get hammered and fail. But if you nail a growth speculative, that's cool. That's not a 1% to 10% of the portfolio. You all remember that story. That's a 1% to 50%, and it radically restructures the portfolio. Hi, Cap. Thanks so much for your insights. What's your opinion of Cleaver? The same opinion I've had for a long time. I own 2.5% of Cleaver voting power, and the potential there's your growth speculative, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Albeit it does pay. If it does pay, let's take a look at Cleaver. What's it paying? 25% of the money, which is less than VLCVX. It's paying 25%. That's cool. Nothing to sneeze at. And what's Cleaver priced at? Oh, 1 second. Zero activity on the day. Cool. I mean, Cleaver's literally a $583,000 market cap. It's not even $1 million market cap, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody knows about this stuff. This is the type of thing that you buy you got exposure to it, and it changes the equation if it does if it turns out to be something big, because it's such a low market cap and nobody understands it. So I have a high opinion of Cleaver. I retain 2.5% of voting power. I'm a very large owner of Cleaver, and that was a certain amount of capital, and I was willing to purchase that amount, and I bought it. I own it. I don't think about it. It contributes no value to my total net worth. I pulled to refresh on the D Bank. It doesn't matter. It's zero. It's worthless. I can't do anything with it other than vote and whatever I get from the lock rewards. And I got some pending lock rewards. I think I never claimed from Cleaver. So this is like 6 months or something. So I got 1,852 CVX. If I was aggressive, I would claim this and I put it on a CVX, is it? In concentrator. And then you go like this, go to the vaults, you do ABC which one is it? I think it's ABC CVX, which is paying at 25% because that comes from the vote lock. So I'm missing out on 25% on that 1800 CVX. And then you go back onto Cleaver and you got the farming. There's your ABC CVX, which is another 30%. You get 50%. I just leave it because my accounting, I don't want to press the claim button because then I have to account for that capital, and that makes it a mess. That's not something I want to do. So I have my reason for not claiming this, but there's 50. I mean, literally, Cleaver's paying basically 50% on Convex, and that's non-locked. Farming, yeah, that's not locked because you could withdraw, and then you could withdraw from ABC CVX. So non-lock CVX is paying more than vote lock CVX. Then to top it all off, it's paying out in some Cleave tokens. That's cool. Very interesting. But folks know about this, right? I mean, we've had some years to do this due diligence. Someone bought a clip. Someone bought a big clip. That was it, just 10 grand. So look at that, 10 grand, move the price that much. Someone bought 10 grand today worth of Cleave. at $3.78. Bought 2600 cleave. Couple of $1,000 purchases. That 10 grand is this volume spike right here. Anyway, would you consider a uni position if they enable the fee switch? No, no interest in uni. I think they've lost the momentum and I'm not interested in them. No. How would you make a four-season portfolio of cryptocurrencies only? Four season? I don't know what that means. I know I have my four rules. I know there's no new assets I want to own. I know that I have appropriate position sizes on my existing assets. I don't have any decisions or actions or purchases or sales to make right now. I have nothing queued up to do. So follow the four rules, and over years, a reasonable portfolio emerges. Good morning, Cap. It's time to look at yeah, okay, that's a reasonable statement. Harshal coming out with a hard truth. It's considerable. Do we discount Andre? Do we discount Sonic? I don't know. Do I retain exposure? Is the amount of capital that's still there, I mean, worthwhile to exit at this point? Or the exposure? What if it goes 100x on the money in the next 2 years? I don't know. So that's a punt. So let's say you have whatever you have as a position size. All right. i- Is it worth it to exit, or do you just keep it and it goes to zero? I am more than happy to let certain things that I own, especially in the highly speculative, go to zero. I want to see what happens. I want front row seats. I bought my ticket. I made a purchase. I live with my purchases. It's hard for me to make a purchase, very hard for me to make a purchase. And it's equally as hard for me to invalidate a purchase because of all the time and effort I spent in choosing what to purchase. Hi, Cap. Much a pleasure. Hola. I bought Convex to lock it forever. In reality, I bought a business and I don't care about the price. I care that it remains profitable over time, maybe even for my child. And Convex is exactly that. I think that that mentality is a healthy mentality. It's a purchase and it will be what it will be. And we have an expectation that it will be something. And that's this there is the gamble there, because if it is something, it could be something very big. And the potential, it's not something. But I would think it will be something, and that's something that I believe. I like convex. I don't own it because I like the base layer. I own the curve, and that's okay. I use the Google to look up the curve, and I made a choice, and that's okay. We all get to choose different things. And in the end, over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we'll live with the results. Autopilot figures are looking bonkers. I like autopilot. The LPs, you talking about the autopilot on the LPs, maybe. Um, I just everything about Aerodrome ticks all my boxes. It's not all the five businesses, but it ticks all my boxes is in the qualifications of an investable business, like no other. Immutable, deterministic, alignment of incentives, pays pure cash, especially with the autopilot integration, the autopilot. Absolutely love everything that they've built. Hey, by the way, Bitcoin's at 85,000. Seems like people are scared at 80 and 85 and stuff like that. This stuff will drive people mad. Why did you never take a pen? Derivatives, derivatives. It's not really a primitive. It's like what's the newer one? I don't even remember at this point. Um, I'm thinking of a protocol and I can't think of it. Spectra, Spectra. I don't like derivatives. I don't like of the five businesses. I like derivatives the least, and I can't really own it. It's not for me. That's a Dune dashboard is beautiful. Which one? There's a couple of dunes that are pretty cool, and frankly, um, that's good data. just as good as DeFi Llama sometimes. We should have a stream just about 12 crypto protocols. The ones in 10 years' time will be equivalent. Yeah, but it's not for me to tell people what I like. I might as well just literally pull up my portfolio and show people my portfolio. What's the point in that? It's much better to talk about the mentality and the psychology and how to think about this stuff and why am I calm today? And I got to wrap up the comments and I'll tell you guys my closing thoughts and how I how I think about this stuff. Basically, agreed with the above. Basically, we can compare a concept of purchase to literally buying an NFT because that's what we really got. Yeah, just a permanent ownership. And you buy a cell phone, you buy a car. I don't know. You buy a house. You buy a table, for your dining room. You bought something. You paid for it, not on credit. Don't buy things on credit. NFTs that pay. I was lucky with Pendle. I bought it 10 cents. Voting is tricky. Never really know how much income you're getting. Pendle Locker. I mean, it was staked out also as Pendle integration from a derivative standpoint. That's cool. Autopilot's Dune DB is what I was referring to. Do they have a Dune? Is that Dune? Up and to the right? Ah, they got 24 million deposits. I mean, it's small, but it's meaningful. Million rewards. That's cool. Up and to the right. That's nice. Very nice. That's pretty. Oh, wow. This is robust. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's cool. Good stuff, dude. Anywho, in closing, I had so many thoughts every time someone made a mention of something. I'm like, I'll save it for the end. And now I'm like, what the hell was I going to mention? Listen, cash flow is all that matters. Cash is all that matters. And cash is your total net worth. And that's the only thing that matters. What can you spend? What can you buy? And in times like this, I'm not thinking about buying assets necessarily. Now, that's obviously because I have a portfolio of assets. And if you don't have a portfolio of assets, you're probably thinking about buying assets. For me, I'm very comfortable with the things that I own. And that's a great place to be because I have X amount of cash in available to pay for my bills, to pay for my girls' schooling, and and to go to the supermarket and maybe go on vacation if I want to. And I work. You never quit your day job, and that's it. And now, what? Next Wednesday I get cash, and next Friday I get a paycheck from work, and that's how you live your life. You live your life on cash. You don't live your life based on your total net worth unless that's like an ego thing. Like, oh, pull to refresh. I'm worth this. Oh, in a couple of years, I want to be worth 7, 8, 9 figures. It's the old ego. Drop the ego. Everyone needs to go to more church. You just need some more. You need some more Ten Commandments type stuff. Be humble. Don't be greedy. Don't covet. Stop wanting things. You don't need anything. What you need to do is be able to go to a supermarket and buy 2 pounds of ground beef and some sweet potatoes and eat a nice dinner and then hit the gym in the morning. That's what you need to do. You focus on your health and well being. Take care of your family. Take care of yourself and make good, rational decisions and have reasonable expectations. Reasonable expectations. Don't have enormous expectations. Enormous expectations are going to fail. But if you have reasonable expectations, you're likely to achieve them. And when you achieve your expectations, you're satisfied. You will feel successful. I have very simple expectations. My expectations are that I will receive cash next week. It may be more, it may be less, but it will be in addition to the amount of cash I get from working. So that is net positive, and I am grateful for that. I'm humbled by that, that I was able to make purchases that are contribute to my salary, so to speak. If you get $2,000 from work and you made purchases over the last 5 years that give you an extra $500, and instead of 2,000 from work, now you made 2,500. You make 25% more than what you do from work because of the decisions you made and the things you bought. That, my friends, is how you change your life over time. Not next week, not in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, because that $500 has the potential to be $5,000. Eh, The potential. And that's the type of thing I want, a potential. And that's why we're here for potential. And if it becomes $5,000 and now I'm making more from the assets I purchased than from work, 2,000 from work, $5,000 from assets, that's everything you could possibly want over a reasonable time frame, 10 years. And I would say the same thing now. I'm in my 40s, early 40s, and if I was starting now and I could do something like that by the time I'm 50 and I have this whole mentality and psychology in mind, that's cool. I would do prepare and sacrifice and do what I need to do for the next 10 years in order to achieve something like that, where the assets do the work for me instead of me doing the work for me. Purchase a salary is an old story that I've told for a long time. And that is what owning a business is. Or and that's what really changes everything with crypto and deterministic immutable protocol because there's no people. These are the best investments there is. There's no humans involved in these businesses. It's pure software. And the immutable ones you can't change. So they're gonna pay you next week if they continue to exist into the future. These are the best investments on the planet, in my opinion. Absolutely nothing changes that opinion. It's just obvious to me at this point, especially. Bitcoin at 85.3. Let's see what happens. Should be an interesting weekend. Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, Friday, November 21st at 12:37 p.m. Thank you all for joining me today. 264 people made it to the end of the stream on this highly volatile day and are now that much more rational because of it. I appreciate each and every one of you. Stay calm, cool, and collected. 4 rules, 5 businesses. Keep things simple. Focus on looking at the data, be like, oh, that's the data, because the data is your compass. And if you know where you are and you're not lost, you should be calm, cool, and collected. So don't get lost, folks. Don't get lost in the noise. Know where you are. Wish you all a wonderful weekend. See you guys and gals next week. Peace.